Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's podcast. First of all, I want to apologize for not recording last week at Assen because both of us we were a little bit stressed with stuff in our personal life, and now I'm sunburned because I went to the Sachsenring. And before we start with MotoGP, I'm representing my Germany jersey. It should have been a penalty, which should have advanced, and not the Spaniards. And I'm very grateful for Stefan Bradl because he took revenge by blocking Marc Marquez in qualifying. So I'm fine with it. And yeah, Keelin, good to see you back again. So how are you?
Leo, I'm great. It's good to see you as well. Like you, I am now Spain's biggest hater. That should have been a penalty. It wasn't a penalty. This is why we don't like English referees in European competitions. All the other referees are brilliant. They let the game go on. They give the right decisions. English referees can't get it right. And yeah, I'm now England's biggest hater as well. So good to be back.
Yeah, I was at the public viewing in Berlin at the Brandenburger Tor. It was very frustrating because we were all getting ready for penalties and saying like, yeah, it's gonna be amazing. And then this fucking goal happened. Okay, the Spaniards, they scored a goal. It was fine, but it should have been a penalty in the first place for Germany because this was clearly a handball. And if the Spaniards were able to equal the game, then afterwards it would be fine. But this one is a little bit frustrating. So yeah, but I already mentioned Stefan Bradl. He took matters in his own hands and revenged the national team, which is fine. So I'm looking like Mr. Krabs now after forgetting my sunblocker, and I encourage everybody to, even if it's a little bit cloudy, which it was in Germany at the Sachsenring, to really, really protect your skin because I feel like things change. Like when I was a child and it was weather like this, I would go out. And I'm not the lightest skin type, not like you. So I I really noticed the change here. So please protect yourself. And even if you have a darker skin tone, it's important. And if you have a lighter skin tone like you, Keelan, it's even more important. So yeah, back to the races. And as I said, I was live there. And firstly, I would like to discuss a little bit the experience here. So if you have any questions, Keelan, please ask me.
Yeah.
And first of all, I would like to compare it with other races. I've been to Valencia, I've been to Jerez, I've been to Misano, I've been to Assen, I've been to Austria, and now I've been to the Sachsenring. And I must say, for me, it was the best GP I've ever attended. I mean, the races aside, it's always a banger to have a championship decider in Valencia, but you can't influence the races. Either they're shit or they're good, but whatever happens, happens. But the organization was top notch, and what was really amazing, like we came to the track by car, then
Mhm.
parked in a parking space, and there were some shuttle buses who drove us to the track. In Valencia, you could park right beside the track and then go there, which is a lot nicer, but
Mhm.
those shuttle buses are a very, very good solution to the problem. And then you arrive at the track and you walk a little bit, and then there's this big entrance. So you go there are toilets for free, unlike in Assen. Nobody's pissing in the bushes there, and you have a lot of food. You have a lot of drinks you can buy, a lot of merchandise. And it's very, very organized. The prices are okay. Like we bought something from a Vietnamese street food, and it was 10 euros for one meal, and it's nice. In restaurants I paid more.
Mhm.
So I, even though the food wasn't the best I ever tasted, it was still nice. And yeah, you can go there and shop merchandise. You can have a little event here and there. There was, for example, for if you're a customer of Sky, you can go to the Sky Lounge and you have a little giveaway and we could watch Formula One there and have a free drink, things like this, nice little extras, I would say. So around the track, it was very, very nice. Then we were at the T2 grandstand, which is the grandstand at the first corner. So we
Hmm.
saw Jorge Martin fucking it up in at the first possible moment, and I have to say it was one of the nicest grandstands I've ever been to, because it's directly at the track. You don't realize how tiny this track is on television, and even the gravel is so small that as a fan, you're right next to it. And there were approximately, let's say, 10 meters, 15 meters between me and the track. So
Hmm.
it was incredible, you know? And we had a screen right in front of us, so we could basically watch everything. I haven't rewatched the races yet, so I'm very, very happy with this weekend. I'm quite confident I will go again at some point, and I honestly can only recommend it. And I don't know about other grandstands, but it was a very pleasurable experience for me, and I can totally recommend it to everybody to go to Germany.
Well, that's excellent. That's really really good to hear. You know, I've spoken to people over the years who've been to Germany, Barcelona, basically all the different tracks on the calendar. And for experience, the Sachsenring generally ranks very very high on their lists for most of the reasons that you've mentioned. To be honest, the only real question I was going to ask is basically how was it? And if you had to compare it to the other big tracks, where would you rank it? Which, of course, you already did. And yeah, that's really really great to hear. I'm sure for our listeners, especially most of whom are based in Europe, and you want to go to a race and experience the calendar in person. I can only imagine that information is going to be extremely valuable to a lot of people who watch and listen to this. So that's great to hear, and I'm glad you had a nice time. And if you are uber white like I am, take Leo's advice.
Yeah, I forgot to mention I was also in Portimao, which
Hmm.
was shit from the organization standpoint. So I can't speak about accommodation because from Berlin we drove down there on the Sunday. We started the trip at like 6 a.m. and arrived there at 9 a.m. and then walked to the track and did everything. So we were perfectly perfectly there for the Moto 3 race.
Hmm.
And I can't speak of accommodation and stuff because, like, for example, when you drive to Austria, Spain, or whatsoever, it's important for me at least that you have accommodation. But here it was unnecessary. We just drove there. It was rather spontaneous because we talked about going there Saturday, but we couldn't, and then we had the opportunity of going there on Sunday because my mom was able to watch the dog, and yeah, we had a nice trip there. And honestly, what always, let's say, annoyed me about tracks is that you're quite far away from the
Hmm.
action. Let's say Spain, for example, or Portugal, it was not that you're directly at the track. And in Austria, it was nice depending on where you sat, but it was a very, very big environment in Austria. And the Sachsenring is more a small environment. The grandstands aren't as big, and it was very, very, let's say, a familiar atmosphere there because you just went there and felt naturally comfortable. It wasn't too many people. I mean, they said 250,000 over the weekend. I have no previous experience uh, about Saturday or Friday, but on Sunday it didn't feel like too many people,
Hmm.
And even the tickets, I said it was spontaneous because we just saw, okay, tickets are available on Saturday, so we thought, okay, let's go on Sunday.
Hmm.
So I don't know about the whole. Maybe they miscounted the fans again by 100,000, but it was very, very nice, and I can really, really recommend the Turn 1 grandstand. It's called T2. you're just sitting right next to the track. And you can also have the general admission where you're in the Omega, which is theoretically nice, but when it's very crowded, it's difficult to get a good place. You need to be there early. And as I said, on other grandstands, I don't know, but since the track is so narrow and so tiny, it's easy to get good access and watch something.
Hmm.
However, what I think is very, very important at every Grand Prix is that you have a grandstand right next to it. Not a grandstand, I'm sorry, a big screen next to it, because you're just seeing one corner. And even with the screen, you're not paying attention to everything. Because, for example, P15 is just riding past you, you're watching, but something happens in the lead and you miss it on the screen. So it's very, very important for me to have a screen there. But in general, it was super duper amazing.
Nice. So, what I gathered from that is that the Sachsenring is a very intimate atmosphere, which makes it better for the fans, basically, that are there.
Yes.
So, question, Leo, given that you've been to many of the European circuits, and this might be interesting, especially for the people who watch and listen to this, if you rank the Saxon Ring in terms of organization and experience as one of the best you've been to, on your rankings of placings you've been, where would it still be Assen that's the worst, or are there other tracks that are worse for different things?
Well, if I would have to rank tracks, first of all, I would always go to a World Superbike race weekend, not to
Hmm.
MotoGP, because that's a real family atmosphere. You can go there and you can really go into the paddock, talk with riders and stuff, and you're really there. But in terms of MotoGP races, I would say Germany's the best.
Hmm.
Austria is second best. What always annoyed me about Austria is that there's little to no accommodation right next to the track. Yes, you can go camping there, but it's always a huge party. And as I said previously, I have no knowledge about accommodation here in Germany about the MotoGP race because I didn't need to sleep anywhere. I slept at home,
Uh-huh.
and I enjoyed Austria a lot. It was a good organization, but generally Germany had this extra, like going there, having those different options of food or drinks, and having those little merchandise stands. There were racing teams who had a little museum of their bikes. There were like 4 racing bikes standing at the side of a road where you can go and watch a little bit. And it was nice. There was as I said, the Sky Launch. There was a little KTM container where you can walk in, and the lady who worked at Sky told me that Pedro was there at the KTM container. Yes, like Saturday. So it has those nice little extras, and in Austria, it's very condensed. After turn 1, basically, if you don't turn right up the hill where the bikes are going, but just go straight on, there's a huge area where you have all those things as well, but it's very condensed. And in Germany, it's right around the track. So it
Ah,
was
right.
it was nice in my opinion. But Austria is also a very, very good weekend. They also have shuttle buses, and I think that those 2 weekends would be my go-to, with Germany in first, Austria in second. If you can manage it, Spain is always great. Like in Jerez, for example, we went there we had a rental car. Don't be gentle, it's a rental. And drove to the track, and there was also like a little shuttle service to the track. And we were sitting at the last corner. Was nice. We had a screen, but it was all a little bit further away. It was not as close as in Germany, but it was nice. You could see the start finish straight. You could see the first corner, and then when they were coming back, you could see them through what is it, turn 11 and 12, and
Hmm.
then the last corner, obviously. So Jerez was very nice. In Valencia, it was also good, but you need to know a little bit about Valencia because it's like a little bit of a stadium,
Hmm.
and they don't have huge grandstands. So if you're unlucky and your seats are towards the bottom, you basically don't see shit.
Wow.
So what we did, we came there very, very early, and we're just standing at the top of the grandstand, and then you can watch everything. It was quite nice. Unfortunately, it was in 2021 where COVID was still around, and they were a little bit stupid about those COVID rules. For example, you weren't allowed to eat at the grandstands. You had to wear your mask all the time, and you weren't allowed to eat. So you have to go down from the grandstand, and when you don't have a real place and just standing there at the top, it's a little bit annoying. The toilets in Valencia were quite shit. It was just a hole, basically. And then I would say like Portimao and Assen for different reasons. Assen is a great circuit in itself. Just the people around it are shit, you know? And what I don't understand is that they don't have free toilets. So people are just pissing everywhere. Everywhere is trash. People are burning their trash. Everybody's drunk. And I mean, I've heard that there's some kind of a festival going on there. So it's not the best atmosphere in this sense, you know?
Hmm.
And Portugal was just shit. I mean, Portugal was, let's say, from the organizational standpoint, the worst I've ever attended. Because when you go to Portugal, at least back then in 2021, and you want to go to the track by car, there's a huge parking space right next to the track, which is fine. But you had to get your ticket for the parking space in the city center at a museum. So everybody was going there. It was a huge line there, and it was traffic in the city because everybody needed to go there. So if you know this and pick it up earlier, it's quite nice, but usually you're a tourist and go there for the first time. So definitely if you want to go to Portimao, check out the parking situation for you beforehand. And the shuttle bus situation was also shit because so many people went there by bus and they didn't have enough buses. So the people were just waiting in line until they finally got picked up. So Portimao wasn't the best race, even though I liked the track in itself, but our our places weren't necessarily the best, which could be our fault again. You maybe can buy better tickets, but we were at the end of the start finish straight at turn one, and then you just don't see don't see too much. I forgot about Misano. Misano was also great. The parking situation in Misano is also a little bit difficult. On Saturday we parked in the garden of some lady and paid her like 10 euros. And on Sunday we parked at a big parking lot but it's also quite a bit away from the track.
Hmm.
And it was quite nice in Misano. We had good seats, not the best, not the worst. And we weren't a little bit further away from the track again because Misano is a bigger track and stuff. But Misano generally I can recommend as well. If you want to go to Italy, go to Misano. If you want to go to Spain, go to Jerez. But my top two would be Germany or Austria, whatever is better for you, you know?
Nice. Sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
They're now at the top of my list.
Okay. I would like to pause for a second because my girlfriend just called and she said it's important. So
Yeah, of
I'll be
course.
back in a
Go.
second, okay?
Why are you?
Well, I'm back, or we are back with Peanut because our favorite dumbass, she ate some crumbs of chocolate cake. Nothing serious, just some small crumbs. And as you might know, chocolate is poison for dogs. So my girlfriend was checking on her if she's doing okay. And she just wanted to say hello, that she's fine, she's sleeping, and she just took a shit. I was outside with her. It was totally normal. Everything's fine. So I'm very happy that I can enjoy this little fluffy thing for the next 10 years. It was quite weird because I brought my mom to the train station and there was some crumbs of somebody. I didn't even see them, you know? And Peanut just walked by and they were gone. And then I saw the other crumbs lying there and I was like, pulled the dog away, like shit. But it was one crumb, so I thought, okay, she will survive. And yeah, um, she did. She's still alive, as you see. So I'm quite happy about it. And I'm looking for a solution on how to avoid this, because usually, like when we walk somewhere, she never eats something from the floor. She's sniffing, and then you see, okay, she's sniffing on it, and then you say no, and then she leaves it alone. But for some reason today, there was like a piece of bread also at the floor. She just ate it, like didn't even hesitate. And I thought, okay, it's bread. I don't care. It's like if you're riding for KTM and somebody crashed, it's like, okay, it's Brad, I don't care. um,
Oh god.
yeah, but the dog is fine. I'm happy that like nothing happened, and yeah, I think I'm done with the ranking. Right? Is there anything you want to know about the German GP experience that I had?
No, to be honest, I think you covered it very, very well. I'm like I said, I'm sure. Obviously, I do, but I'm sure the viewers and the listeners will especially appreciate, in depth sort of analysis of it. Because usually, when you ask people about a track, they're like, "Oh, it's good, it's not good, this is okay, this is okay." But to have someone who's been there and is actually able to break down every single component of it in such depth, I think what that allows, especially for fans of our podcast and podcasts like ours, is it allows them to make a very informed decision about where they want to go and what they want to experience. So if they know, okay, Sachsenring is maybe one of the best in Europe, but Austria is also really good, although it's lacking in this compared to Germany. I think that's really, really great to have. And like I said, I really appreciate the insight, and I have no doubt everybody else will appreciate it as well. So, guys who are listening, if you are ever looking to go to Germany, you now know, if you didn't already, it's a really great place to go. It's great accessibility. The grandstand at turn one is perfect. And I am actually interested in what you said about the turn one grandstand, because I would like to see that at more tracks, the intimacy and being much closer to the action, because even on TV, there are a lot of grandstands and different points of tracks where it feels like you're on a different planet compared to the actual action. And I do think a lot of tracks could improve if they adapted that from the Sachsenring, just in terms of being closer to the race. So that sort of thing's really, really good to know.
Well, it's a little bit of a trade-off. First of all, you can imagine the track, like the first corner is a U
It
turn,
is.
basically. And you're sitting at the side of the U. So you're not at the corner, really, you're at the exit of the corner.
Yeah.
And you have the gravel there, but the track is right there. And then there's basically no gravel, no runoff area between the exit of the turn and the grandstand, which is quite nice for the fans. But then again, you have like safety measures you have to take to keep having MotoGP there, which brings us to even faster bikes, even faster tires. So something isn't working here. At one point we want more safety. We changed the regulations for 2027 to make the bikes slower, but the tires are 1 second faster at every track. It's ridiculous. And what was very scary was the crash of Jose Antonio Rueda.
Oh,
For whatever reason, his rear locked and he basically drove into the gravel and jumped off the bike. And he and the bike hit the air fence. If you remember Pedro's crash in Jerez, it was more or less the same. Not that the rear locked, but he hit the air fence.
hmm.
And also Luis Salom, the day he died, he hit the air fence. So it's a real problem and you need runoff areas. However, runoff areas aren't the best for fans, because you're quite far away. So there isn't a real solution, because it's basically everything you gain on one side, you lose on the other side. What could be a solution, that you have the runoff areas underneath the grandstand, but I guess this would cost so much money. So I'm I'm a little bit here and there in this
Yeah.
sense, because on one hand we need safety, on the other hand it's nice that you're directly at the track, which also, like Moto 3, he had a very strange accident, but it was still an accident that can happen. And Moto 3 isn't the fastest there. What if Jorge Martin's rear locked at this exact point of the track, and he was, let's say, 50 kilometers an hour faster? I don't know. And it would have been different, I think. So difficult, but as a fan, you can't complain about how close you are to the track. So I really enjoy it, and also Austria is a great weekend. I can recommend it to everyone. Like, it depends on where you live, what your budget is, and so on. Jerez is also great. I want to go to Mugello. I want to go to Silverstone and maybe Le Mans, but I guess at some point it's enough.
Yeah, it's never enough for us, though, is it?
I mean, I enjoy World Superbike a lot more. Again, it was a spontaneous decision, and we thought, okay, we're here now. We can go to the Sachsenring just for the Sunday. Why not? And we were very lucky with the tickets. We were very lucky that everything played out the way it did. But in generally, I can recommend it to everybody, and it was quite a nice experience. Like, if you have a family, if you want to go with your wife and children, for example, Germany is a very, very safe place to be. Austria as well. Like Assen, I wouldn't go there because it's just drunk idiots there. If you want to be a drunk idiot, go to Assen. It depends on what you want. But in general, for me, at least, Germany was the best race I attended so far. Maybe it's recency bias, I don't know, but it was incredible.
Love that. That's really. I'm glad you had a nice time, to be
Yeah.
honest. Because that's the main thing at the end of the day. You got to enjoy the experience, and if it's Germany, it's Germany. That's the main thing.
Okay, I almost crashed the table. Yeah. Let's talk about the race, because Jorge Martin, he crashed right in front of us, and nobody could believe it because he was the fastest man of the weekend. It was his to lose, and he did lose it. I mean, it was crazy how incredibly stupid. You know, he was in control of the race. He needed to win the race in order to be in the championship fight, because not just because of point, he's still in the championship fight, but now Pecco has won 4 in a row. It's a long summer break, and the momentum starts to shift, and he really needed this weekend, in my opinion, to get the momentum back and show everybody, hey, I'm still the fastest guy here. So very, very sad for him that he crashed. It was very stupid. No, like, even if he didn't have the pace anymore, like, I think Pecco wouldn't have caught him. But even if so, first of all, you still have to overtake. And
Mhm.
second of all, 20 points is better than no points. So I don't really understand what's going on with him. I hope he figures it out. I mean, he came out and said, look, I had the same problem in Mugello, in Jerez, and it seems to be like the same type of thing happening all over again. So I hope he finds a solution to this problem. But man, I mean, it was a huge missed opportunity. He didn't lose 25 points yesterday. He lost 30 points because Pecco won the race. Now he has 5 points more. And if on the end of the year he loses the championship by 10 points, I mean, he will look back at this race and think, fuck, a little bit like Mandalika last year, you know?
I mean, it's literally like history repeating itself from last year. I mean, I don't know what to say about Jorge Martin. Has a brilliant Saturday. Brilliant in the sprint race as he usually always is. And then when the big points come up and when the points really matter, he kind of throws it away. What's interesting about Jorge Martin's crash, analyzing the actual crash itself, is that everything about the approach to turn one was wrong. He was offline, he wasn't on the right racing line, and then he tried to recover it when it was too late and he folded the front completely. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a tire issue. I don't know if he just overshot it. I don't know what the problem was. But everything about the approach to turn one on that second to last lap, it was just completely wrong. And when you've ridden 27 perfect laps of a race and it comes to lap 28 or whatever, I think it was lap 28, When it comes to the second to last lap, how you so badly misjudged that opening corner, I don't know. But what's happened is now, and you're absolutely right in what you said, that hasn't just cost him 25 points, that's cost him 30 points because okay, fair enough. If you don't have the tires anymore, you don't have the pace or whatever it is, you settle for second. Marc Marquez is 5 seconds behind you. He's not going to catch you. But now what you've done is you've thrown away the points that you would have won, and you've thrown away the difference in points if you'd finished second. So now he's lost. He's not just lost the race; he's lost the championship lead. I think he's a what is he now? A point behind Pecco,
10.
202 to two. Sorry.
10.
Oh, yeah, sorry, you're right. He's 10 points behind Paco now. And what that does for Jorge Martin's psyche, I have absolutely no idea because, like you said, we now have a 3 week break before the UK round. And that's now going to be playing in Jorge Martin's mind for the next 3 weeks. Am I going to recover this? Is history repeating itself? Is this just a repeat of last season? And to be honest, with the form that Pecco Bagnaia is in, I think it is a repeat of last year. It's Jorge Martin in the lead, his to control, his to lose, and he's gifted the lead back to Pecco Bagnaia again. And as we know from past history, when you gift Pecco a lead, he's not going to gift it back to you. I fear this might be it for Jorge Martin. I know that's premature. We have a second half of the season to go. But the problem is that when just like on the track, when Paco gets a lead in something, he doesn't give it up. And Jorge Martin has proven he does give it up. And so where that leaves us with Jorge Martin, I have no idea because now he's on the back foot again. He's chasing Paco again. And if he doesn't get it done this time, I don't think he's getting it done in the Aprilia. So I fear Jorge Martin might have blown his last chance at this.
Well, that's a different topic, and the Aprilia is going to be very interesting. But regarding Pecco, during the race, I don't know if you had the same feeling watching it on TV, but during the race, there was a feeling like, okay, now, like after 20 laps, like, okay, now the ship has sailed, everything's fine. You just need, and then shit started picking up again. And one thing that started picking up again was Pecco. It was very, very weird because he was at the beginning leading, Jorge overtook him, and then you could really see those gaps forming, which is nice when you see it live. You don't really see it as good on TV, but those gaps, you really see them growing or shrinking. And Jorge had a quite a good gap on Pecco, and even after Frankie Morbidelli overtook him, and then he started to roll again.
Yeah.
And it looked like he saved his tires a lot. He knew, okay, they're too fast in the front. I need to settle back, and then I will get it at the end, which is very, very smart in my opinion.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know how much Pecco's pressure had to do with Jorge Martin crashing, but I think that Pecco did the best he could and outsmarted everybody else because Pecco wasn't the fastest rider on track. He was behind Jorge in pace, arguably behind Marc, even though you can make an argument for Pecco, you can make an argument for Marc, and it's difficult to judge Marc
Hmm.
because of his injuries. But injuries aside, Marc would have wiped the floor with Pecco. And it was very, very smart by Pecco that he knew, okay, I'm not the fastest here, but I'm the smartest, and he made it work.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, like you just said, what where Pecco deserves all the credit in the world is his tire management. His tire management was absolutely perfect. I mean, when it got to the sort of mundane part of the race, the sort of middle bit of the race, Pecco realized, okay, let's take a step back here. Let's get these tires managed, and we'll save for a late push at the end of the race. See, where Pecco and Jorge Martin differ is up here. Mentality. If that was Jorge Martin, Martin would have been pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and inevitably he probably wouldn't have finished the race anyway. Where Pecco is different is Pecco's mindset is okay, Jorge Martin's setting 1 minute 20.8 laps or whatever it is he's setting. Let's try and set 121s, be consistent, bang out lap after lap after lap after lap. We'll keep some tread in these tyres for the last few laps, and then we'll push if we're in striking range. If we're not in striking range, we have 20 points in the bag. We go into the summer break and we go again. Pecco's mindset and his ability to think ahead is what's going to win him a third world championship this year, and it's what's won him his first two world championships. The problem with Jorge Martin and Leo, how many times have we said this on this podcast over the last couple of years? Jorge Martin's inability to look at the big picture and look ahead is what cost him heavily last year, and it's what's probably going to cost him this year. Pecco Bagnaya's ability to look at the blueprint and look at the big picture is why he's world champion. Pecco is just so cerebral and he's so good at looking at things analytically, taking the emotion out of it, taking the sting out of it, and then approaching it in the best way. And that's why Pecco won this race. Like you said, Pecco wasn't the fastest rider this weekend. Pecco wasn't even the best rider this weekend, but Pecco was the smartest rider this weekend. And that's why he has his championship lead back. It's why he now has the momentum, and it's why, barring a miracle mess up, he's probably not going to surrender it either.
Well, Pecco has the capability of being the dumbest rider on the grid
He
also, and
does.
he showed it in the past quite often. But the difference between Pecco and now and Pecco in previous season is he shifted his crashing from the main races to the sprint races, or his DNFs. I mean, in Le Mans he didn't crash, which saves him half the points, you know?
Exactly.
And Jorge is all sprint, you know? Like, Jorge can win every sprint race, but in the main races is where he fucks up. And honestly, I don't know where this goes. I wouldn't go this far and saying the championship's already over, but it looked like Pecco is the better rider in the first half of the season, even though Jorge Martin is the faster rider, if that makes sense.
It does.
But Pecco is naturally good in the second half of the race, and now with 4 race wins in a row, I mean, it's very difficult to stop him now. Like Silverstone, he's good. Austria, he's good. I mean, everything is possible for Pecco now, and Jorge needs to get his shit together. And we still have 2 crashes from Pecco left, so I don't know when he will crash, but two crashes um are going to come, and I don't know what Jorge does. Let's see. So Marc is going to be a good factor as well because, like, Marc had a very, very strange weekend. He
Very strange.
comes to the track where he has won like 11 races
Hmm.
on a Ducati where everybody said he will wipe the floor with everybody, and especially in Germany. Then he has this huge high sider, which honestly, I don't know why, but the front went, and it's obviously the cold side of the tire.
Hmm.
And he should have known better, I believe, because the front folded underneath him.
Hmm.
But the way it folded and the high side's pure unlucky. And he has bruised ribs, he had a broken finger. Then he was held off in qualifying by Stefan Bradl. And what he made out of it is just incredible. I mean, he had a good start, but not the greatest. He had the contact with Frankie Morbidelli, and he just overtook everybody, you know,
Yeah.
except Pecco. But he was just phenomenal this weekend, and I'm very, very eager to see them fighting again. You know, it feels like a long way back when we had Jerez, when we had Le Mans. And it looks like Marc is lacking something at the moment in comparison to Pecco and Jorge Martin, but he is still very, very competitive. And I think there will be better tracks for him. I think he can win in Aragon. There's no doubt about it that he will be competitive there, and it's going to be interesting. But what he's doing, and we can't forget he's on a year-old bike, you know? I don't know what's up with the bike, but, you know, it's approximately, let's say, 0.2 slower per lap than a new one.
Hmm.
or like a quarter of a second, which makes a lot of difference over a race weekend.
Yeah.
So I think that Marc is very, very incredible at the moment. He's still learning, I believe, with the Ducati.
Hmm.
And it's gonna be wild the second half of the season. I can't wait until Silverstone starts. Like Silverstone's the next one, right?
It
Or
is,
is it
yeah.
Austria?
No, it's Silverstone, then Austria.
Okay, thanks.
No, of
I'm
course, but
just
listen,
I'm just double checking because I don't trust you, but you're right.
no, I think you made a brilliant, brilliant point about Marc Marquez. And look, this weekend is a very good microcosm example of why Ducati picked Marc Marquez over Jorge Martin. And to be clear, I'm going to be completely transparent. I thought Jorge Martin was the better pick over Marc Marquez for a variety of different reasons. But this weekend proved why Gigi Dall'Igna and co picked Marquez over Jorge Martin. I mean, on Friday, he has a freakishly unlucky high side. Like you said, he somehow saves the front on the cold right hand side of the tire, and then the rear tire just grips at a really weird spot in the waterfall section, and it just flips into the moon basically. Suffers a broken finger, several bruised ribs, like you said, but an incredible race. An absolutely brilliant race. Like you said, his qualifying was stunted by Bradl, shout out Germany. And he just had a great, great race. And what it showed is the rider can still make the difference in MotoGP. I know a big criticism of the championship is electronics and different things and ECUs and all this kind of things are basically what make or break a champion. And what we saw this weekend, especially with Marc, is that the rider does still make the difference because Marquez, whether you love him or whether you hate him, showed an incredible amount of heart and determination to not just folding. Like, if Marc had pulled into the pits 5 laps in, he would have been forgiven by anybody because those injuries are really severe. You know, a broken finger on his, I think it's his left hand, several bruised ribs, which shock are very important for being able to ride a motorcycle. I just think it was an incredibly gutsy performance, and he deserved the P2. He absolutely deserved the podium, and he deserves all the credit in the world, really. And what's really weird about his move this year to Grassini, and maybe this is a bit controversial, and maybe Honda fans will hate me for saying this. This season looks like the first year where Marc Marquez is actually happy being a MotoGP rider. I know at times at Honda he was happy and this and that, but this to me at Grassini looks like the first time he actually feels stress free and that the weight of the world isn't actually on his shoulders. He's not going into every race feeling like it's a bull underneath trying to kill him. It feels like he's just enjoying his life and that he's enjoying going to every race weekend. And I think what you are getting is a better version of Marc Marquez because of that. He seems happy. His personality's actually showing. And I think that's a really, really, and I think that's good for the championship. You know, like we've said before, a healthy Marc Marquez is only a good thing for MotoGP because MotoGP needs Marc Marquez and it needs Marc Marquez fighting at the front. And let me tell you something, folks. Not only is the second half of this season going to be good, but boy, oh boy, next year is going to be something else. When he has the full arsenal of weaponry at his disposal, Paco Bagnaia is in for a hell of a fight.
Yeah, I forgot something regarding Jorge Martin,
Uh-huh.
and you talking about Mark reminded me of it because
Hmm.
Mark losing the front in the waterfall section and also like him having all those saves with the front is I talked with Remy after the race and I asked him about the difference in Superbike and MotoGP tires, and basically he said the Michelin tires they don't offer as good of a feeling as
Yeah.
the Pirellis. And the Pirellis afterwards are completely chewed up, but you get a better feeling for what the tire is actually doing than on the Michelins. And with that in mind, like it's even more impressive what those guys are doing, like saving over the front when you don't have this good feeling. Like the Bridgestones were notorious for it. You can lock the Bridgestones and then pick them up because you knew when you had a good feeling for the Bridgestones, you know?
Exactly.
And riders like Mark, who had those incredible reactions or have, they really exposed it. And because you could really hammer the Bridgestone front tire. And
Mhm.
apparently with the Michelin front tire, it's different. So I'm very, very impressed by it. So quick note on maybe Jorge Martin just didn't have the right feeling for the tire and therefore he crashed. Who knows? But yeah, it reminded me of this. Also, Alex Marquez was on the podium, which is nice.
Yeah.
And those two on the podium together, it was very cute. It was a wholesome moment, and I'm happy for him because, like, I criticize him as well. What he has done in MotoGP so far is not necessarily the most impressive resume. I mean, yes, he has like one or two sprint wins, but apart from that, a podium here and there, but you know, and being overshadowed by Mark on the same motorcycle, while Mark has never ridden this one before. From the first race onwards, isn't a good look for him. And
Mhm.
now, like, not necessarily just him, but also Frankie Morbidelli just showing, okay, I'm here, I can do this. Alex has a new Gresini contract. I think Frankie will go to Valentino Rossi's team, where Marco Bezzecchi obviously left. And I think it's good for the sport that those riders are still showing everybody every now and then, okay, I still can compete, because you really don't need a 10th Spaniard finishing in P14, you know? But it's good if you have those riders at the front, you know? And also, I want to give a quick shout out to Miguel Oliveira. He has been very, very good over the weekend. I mean, his sprint was better than the main race,
Mhm.
but still, yeah, like, okay, Pramac Yamaha is a thing. Maybe I need to show something to get a seat, because I don't think he will stay at Trackhouse. Like, I think he will stay in MotoGP because he's Portuguese and it's too important. But he has not had the best 2 years on the Aprilia with injuries and stuff, but also, like, you expected more from him. And to have him on a good motorcycle showing good results, it's good for the sport again.
Yeah, it is. And I'll try and take this bit by bit. First of all, very impressed with Alex Marquez. Thought he was good. Thought he had a good race overall. And yeah, I think what we've seen from Alex Marquez is what he is. He's a very, very good number two to have in your team, but he's never going to be the number one. He's kind of like, if we look at Marc Marquez, for example, as the A side, Alex Marquez is always going to be the B side of your team. And that's not a criticism. I know that can come across as a criticism, but it actually isn't. Very often in a MotoGP team or an F1 team or whatever motorsport team you want to pick, very often having a good number two is just as important as having a very good number one. Now, in this case, it's a unique scenario because they're two brothers, so they know each other very well. But in any MotoGP team, it's very good to have a stabilizing force in any manufacturer's team. And having someone like Alex Marquez, who, okay, he doesn't set the world alight, but he's always going to be there and he's always going to be within the top 10 and he'll pick up points and do this kind of thing. He is a very valuable asset to have if you can get the right A side to complement him. And I think I was very happy for him. I think he deserved the podium this weekend. I thought he was good. I thought he rode a good race. And you made an interesting point about him being overshadowed by Morbidelli and by Marquez. Obviously, Mark having never ridden the bike up until this season. But if you look at it from Grassini's side and you look at it from Nadia Padovani's side, they don't need Alex Marquez to be spectacular. They just need him to be the stabilizing floor so someone like Marc Marquez can smash the ceiling. And that team dynamic can be very, very helpful. And I think keeping him around is valuable for that very reason. Miguel Oliveira, let's get on to him. very happy for him as well. He had a very very good Sunday, and he had a good sprint race as well. Now I don't know if you've seen this or not, but because I get the TNT Sports broadcast here, Oliveira said that because Espargaro was out injured this weekend, he had more access to more data and more engineers from the factory Aprilia team, who obviously would have been working on Espargaro. And they seemed to really find something in the Trackhouse bike that unlocked something big, because his pace at the beginning and the middle of the race was incredible.
I heard this one as well, and I call absolute bullshit on it for
Of
two
course you do.
reasons. I mean, Miguel was good in Germany on the KTM, like he almost beat Marc Marquez there in 2021. It seems to be a good track for him.
Hmm.
And those engineers who work for Aprilia, the factory team,
Uh-huh.
you can't tell me that they are so much better than the Trackhouse team. If this is true, Trackhouse needs to fire all their engineers, you know? If this is true, like giving, let's say, Marc Marquez, the factory Ducati engineers, would make him 2 seconds faster every lap, and he would lap everybody except Paco and Jorge, you know? But I don't buy it, and I think this is a tactical move by Miguel saying, hey, look at me. I need some more help from you guys, and maybe shift the attention more towards him to get maybe a little bit. But I don't think that it's the reason for his success at the Sachsenring. You know, I think it's just him saying, "Hey, I need more support from you. I need more attention from you. Look what I can do." But in reality, it was maybe just a small fraction. It's possible that maybe some engineer who works for Espargaro can give Miguel this little bit extra, but to contribute his performance going from outside the points in the top two in the sprint race, I don't see it.
Yeah, look, it could be very cynical reasoning, and it could just be Oliveira playing politics. I certainly wouldn't count it out. But on the other hand, and I get that historically Oliveira has, I mean, he got Tech Three's first ever win for KTM at the Sachsenring, so
No,
everything's
no, no,
gonna.
no, 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 no,
Oh
no.
no, it was Austria.
It
Sorry,
was
you're right.
Austria.
I apologize. I'm thinking of Austria, not Sachsenring. But yeah, look, it's very possible that an engineer looked at a bit of data, suggested an improvement to maybe the setup, and it's possible he did find something. Now, I do think both your reasoning and Oliveira's reasoning can work hand in hand. I think elements of both might be true. But at the end of the day, look, he had a brilliant weekend, and now the spotlight in terms of Aprilia is on, do we actually keep Oliveira? Because he's shown in that weekend he does have the potential to do something. But at the end of the day, if it's only temporarily borrowing factory engineers to find something, people will ask, is it worth keeping him? And that's a debate that will go on to probably towards the end of the season.
Which brings us to Raul Fernandez, because what he did is absolutely horrendous. I mean, I've heard rumors that they want to keep him and not Oliveira, which is very strange in my opinion.
Pretty
Like,
weird.
Raul Fernandez has literally done nothing in MotoGP. The best thing he ever did was crashing in the lead.
I mean,
Like,
I have to agree.
he never achieved anything. The dog is still alive.
I think Peanut agrees.
Yeah, I will look at her. Wait a
Yeah,
second. Okay, now she's coming here. Come here. I guess somebody is outside, but yeah. We went outside 30 minutes ago. She took a huge shit, so I don't necessarily think she needs to go outside again.
ironically, like Raul Fernandez.
Yeah, correct. I don't know who took the bigger shit though. No, but honestly, what Raul did there, I mean, he started on the front row, right? And to finish the sprint and the race in outside the top 10, I mean, what's his result? Yeah, I mean he was top 10 in the main race, and he was 14th in the sprint race. I mean, it's literally not good enough if you want to stay. And I don't know what they see in him, because like he's been in MotoGP now for 3 years.
Yep.
Take away the KTM, because KTM in this year was shit. We will talk about KTM in a minute, because apparently they're still shit. But on the Aprilia, he should have shown more, and especially this season, like what he did in Catalonia. If he did it multiple times and is competing for podiums, okay, I can understand it. But what he's doing now, it's simply not good enough, in my opinion. And I don't know how many years you still want to give him, how many years he's living off of his amazing Moto 2 season. Uh, in my opinion, you need to get somebody into Trackhouse who is good, not great, good, and a talent like Joe Roberts. I could totally see Joan Mir going there and being like a stable first, rescuing his career from Honda, but not Raul Fernandez. I mean, he has literally shown nothing in MotoGP, which makes me think, okay, he needs to get another year. Like, I don't see this thing that just needs to be unlocked, you know? And
Yeah,
like,
it's
I'm sorry, same with Maverick. Maverick had the most Maverick weekend ever. He set the lap record on Friday, and on a Saturday he was outside of the points.
on Sunday too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry he wasn't outside. He was seventh in the sprint, and he was 12th in the main race, and he had this little mistake in the main race. I'm getting a little bit confused with the results, because as I attended it live, you don't necessarily see the exact same position. You just get a feeling, and then you saw Maverick battling with the Hondas, and you're like, yeah, no. And the thing is, okay, he fucked up there. He went into the gravel, but then he was stuck with the Hondas for so long. We just thought, okay, come on, overtake them. What's the problem? And even Remy said, like, oh, what's Maverick doing here?
No, it's a very interesting point, and I think what the case of Raul Fernandez especially highlights is, you know, this is not this is an obvious statement to make, but MotoGP is more competitive than it has ever been, and there's always new talent sort of hunting for seats in MotoGP. And I don't like being overly critical of Raul Fernandez because he's a young rider. He's doing whatever it is he can, right? But the problem is when you look at the other talents in say Moto 2 who are vying for a seat that he currently occupies, the question has to be asked, does Raul Fernandez merit another year in the Premier class? And with Aprilia, I just think the answer you arrive at is no, he doesn't. And that's not me being overly critical of Raul, that's just being objective. And the problem is, outside of Catalonia, where admittedly he was very impressive for those few laps, outside of that one race, I just haven't been impressed with Raul Fernandez. And I don't see anything outside of a very, very tiny microcosm in Catalonia. I don't see anything outside of that that merits another year. I really don't. Now, okay, if there's a spare seat at a Honda or a Yamaha, fair enough. By all means, if you want to give him a seat, give him a seat. But should he be holding back riders like Joe Roberts, maybe a Joan Mir, who we can at least see resurrecting his career? No, I don't think he should, and that's just the cruel, cold-hearted fact of it. I don't see any evidence, like you said, of the next step. I don't see evidence of him moving to the next level. Whereas with Joe Roberts, for example, because I think we both think he's going to get the Trackhouse seat. If I look at Joe Roberts in Moto 2, I'm looking at a rider who can take the next step, and this year has taken the next step. Okay, the Pirelli tires have certainly helped, but I see a rider there who is capable of moving through the gears and is capable of growing and progressing and getting better as the years go on. With Raul Fernandez, I just don't see it. I just don't. And I think at the end of the year, it's very possible with Trackhouse, maybe we see a double rider change. Maybe Joan Mir and Joe Roberts go in there, and maybe Oliveira and Raul Fernandez get replaced. But basically, to bring it back to what you were saying, does Raul Fernandez merit another year? I personally just don't see it.
The thing with Miguel is you get a lot of ups and downs,
You do.
but you get those highs. You get the P2 in Germany, you get the win in Catalonia, you get the win in Austria, but or this incredible win he had in Portugal. You get those races, but you also get the races where you think, what the fuck are you doing there? And
Yeah.
then you have the races where he's taken out by somebody. And I think Oliveira is a good rider to keep in your team if you're a satellite team. And yeah, regarding Maverick, I mean, he's going to KTM next year.
Hmm.
He is going to hate it. I'm telling
He
you, it's
is.
not gonna be pretty. Like, Maverick is the most fragile thing I've ever seen, and what he's doing at the moment is beyond me. Like, how can you set a world record on a track on Friday and be nowhere on Sunday? How is this possible? Like, even the qualifying, he wasn't necessarily this good. But I mean, I don't know, and I don't know what's going on with KTM. It was weird. Like, the rookie Pedro is still the best KTM rider. He beat Brad Binder again.
By a mile.
Jack Miller is out there fighting with Hondas. I mean, what the fuck? I literally saw it in front of my eyes. You don't see it at broadcast, you just see the name and stuff. But he was fighting with Hondas. Like, what the fuck? What are you doing there, mate? And Augusto Fernandez basically the same. And then
Yeah.
they're picking up tire pressure infringements, What is going on? I mean, and the thing is, KTM is they basically fired this one dude they hired from Ducati. I forgot his name. And they are making changes inside of KTM. And usually this is not pretty because KTM has a very weird way of doing business. And, or let's say Red Bull, because Red Bull is basically the same in Formula One. But honestly, I don't know what's going on there with KTM and what direction they want to go. It looked promising again at the beginning of the season, mainly because of Pedro. And now even Pedro, who has been better than every other KTM, is just P7. Like, yes, he's a rookie. He should be P7. I'm not criticizing him in any way, but Brad shouldn't be P9. Jack Miller shouldn't be fighting with Hondas.
Yeah.
And I don't know in which direction they're going because it seems like they lost something. And to bring me back to the tire thing, there was a picture of the first corner where you could see those black marks. Like, here's a black mark, then there's nothing, then here's a black mark again, which basically showed the chattering.
Yeah.
Like, bring tires with less grip. It's not that difficult. You have less grip, you have less corner speed, less danger. It's everything we want. Like, we changed the fucking rules for this. Just change the tires. And the chattering nobody wants, and have a tire where you have a good feeling, which isn't so temperature sensitive and isn't as fast. Like, MotoGP wouldn't be a problem if you take 1 second out of it. It wouldn't be a problem.
No, it
Maybe we
wouldn't.
should live with more memes that John Mir is slower than Chandra, but I mean, I can deal with it. But just take some time out of MotoGP. It's getting too fast. It's ridiculous. Have those stupid chatter issues where Ducati was suffering from it, KTM is suffering from it, and I don't know what's going on with KTM. If I did, I would be not sitting here. But it's absolutely crazy to me how KTM, year in, year out, same inconsistency. It doesn't matter the riders. You can have a generational talent like Pedro going there. And I would defend Pedro for everything because he's a rookie, but I don't defend Brad Binder, Jack Miller, and Augusto Fernandez because What those three guys are doing is beyond me. Pedro has every right to be inconsistent. Pedro has a right to be good at one track and bad at the other track. He's a rookie. Rookie are supposed to learn from experience. A rookie isn't supposed to compete for a podium every year, every week. But Brad Binder is. Like, at least Jack Miller should be in the top 10. What the fuck?
If a rookie is your best rider and your best rider by some distance, then something has gone seriously wrong with your MotoGP program. Pedro Acosta should not be your best. I know how contradictory this is going to sound, but stay with me. Pedro Acosta should not be your best rider this season. He shouldn't be. There is no world in which Pedro Acosta should consistently, at every single track, be your best rider. At this stage in the KTM program, Brad Binder should be your best rider. Jack Miller should be solidly scoring in the top 10. The fact that Pedro Acosta, owing solely to his generational talent, is your best rider and is competing for points and podiums is embarrassing. And it's an embarrassing look in the KTM program as a whole. You know, we've been through this cycle for what, 4 years now since Remy and Raul were their Tech 3
Basically,
riders?
since KTM entered MotoGP.
Basically, since the beginning. And it's this constant cycle of, we think we're getting somewhere, the bike's really good. Then we're back here. They're in the middle of nowhere, they cannot get it together. And the reality is that you should not have any of your bikes fighting with Hondas unless you've had a mechanical problem and you're genuinely at the back of the grid. You should be so far ahead of Honda right now. You should be lapping Hondas basically. Instead, you have Jack Miller and Augusto Fernandez in the trenches fighting them. I mean, that's a bad look. And to bring this back to what we were originally talking about, which is Maverick Vinales, why you would agree to go to such an unstable manufacturer's program is beyond me. Because Maverick Vinales, the one thing we do know about Maverick is that he does not cope with pressure well at all. And he does not cope with instability at all. In terms of talent, probably in terms of pure talent, Maverick Vinales is probably top five riders on that grid. On his day, we have seen how dominant he can literally wipe his ass with the rest of the grid. He can be that good. But he's also incapable of leading a program and he's incapable of dealing with the difficulties that come with it. So that leads me to, are you going to rely on Enea Bastianini? Is that who you're going to rely on? Because the reality is, when the going gets tough, you cannot rely on Maverick Vinales. And that's not me being an asshole about Maverick Vinales. History and the records tell you that you can't. For the love of God, he tried to blow up a Yamaha because it was that difficult to get moving forward. And now you want to bring him to KTM? I, I don't know. I just
Yeah.
don't know.
The thing is, when you look at the results, you have Pedro, Jack Miller roughly 15 seconds behind Pecco. And then you have Jack Miller, Taka Nakagami, and Luca Marini roughly 25 seconds behind the leader. You get beaten by 4 seconds. No, more. Sorry. You get beaten by 7 seconds by a rider, Maverick Vinales, who has been in the gravel. I mean, what is going on? And like, we can talk about KTM forever, but it's always the same story. And every year it's the same. And now we are in this part where you think, okay, now why am I even surprised? Like, why did I think it was different this year? At this exact moment, we are in the KTM cycle. They will have better races, presumably at the end of the season.
Yep.
Maybe even Pedro can win one,
Hmm.
but they need to figure out what's wrong with the bike and to have those personal changes inside. Hopefully it provides any benefit, but I don't think it's a pretty direction KTM is going at the moment. So I don't know, but I would like to talk a little bit about Remy because this makes me far happier. Like, Remy in my opinion, should have gotten more time in MotoGP. He was done dirty by KTM,
Agreed.
and I think it's the wrong decision by RNF back then to sign um, Raul Fernandez and not Remy, because yeah, at the time you could have made an argument for Raul Fernandez, but in hindsight, like Remy was better in Moto 2, Remy was better in MotoGP. Give him the seat, you know? But it is what it is. So to see him back in the paddock and doing very well, yes, the results weren't amazing, but it was his first time on the MotoGP bike, and he held his own against a test rider, Stefan Bradl, and Joan Mir. He even beat Pedro. Like, look at this. He beat Pedro in the sprint and he beat Jorge Martin in the main race. How amazing, you know? No, but seriously, he was doing good. He didn't crash. He collected data. He gave valuable feedback to Yamaha. This is exactly what they need, you know? They don't need somebody crashing in the first lap because trying to get some points, you know? And Remy was doing all the right things for them. And it's very, very nice that he's back in the paddock. He enjoyed himself. And it's what I've heard is that Yamaha was very happy with him. So I think that he showed everybody that he is a very, very capable rider, and try to look at it from this perspective. It was the first weekend with the new Michelin tires, new bike. He never ridden the Yamaha before, and he's already competing with Joan Mir, who has been in MotoGP his whole MotoGP career, obviously. He never went anywhere else. Stefan Bradl, who's been in MotoGP for 12 years now.
Hmm.
Like, he rode the Bridgestones, he rode Honda, Yamaha, he rode the Aprilia, he rode the Michelins, he's been a test rider for Honda. I mean, the kilometers this man has on a MotoGP bike, and also Joan Mir, the kilometer this man has on a MotoGP. When you compare this to Remy, yes, he was on a KTM back then. He had some previous experience with the track, with the tires, but even though the tires are like from the feeling more or less the same, different tires, completely different bike, hasn't ridden 1 meter on the Yamaha. And to go in there and be competitive compared to those two, I think is impressive. And when you look at the future, like, I don't know what's up with Alex Rin's health status, because what was really shocking to me, like, obviously he crashed last year in Mugello and broke his leg and was out for most of the season, you know? But in Assen at the podium celebration, like before the podium celebration, when the riders look at the highlights of the race and talk, like, Jorge Martin said something like, "Oh, that's the leg he still has problems with. You know, it's over a year. He spent his wedding in a wheelchair. Now he spends his summer break at the doctor again. Like, he has a beautiful family. At what point is it enough?" It's the same with Paul, you know? Paul had a very successful career. Yes, he never won, but honestly, he did everything he could. He achieved everything he could. Same with Alex. At one point, is it enough? You know, Alex is a talented rider. He deserves to be in MotoGP. But, you know, at what point is it enough?
It's an excellent question, and I do think that what you see with Alex Rins currently, and I mean, look at Joan Mir with Honda, for example, and I suppose Luca Marini too. This is the side of MotoGP that I think should bring it home to a lot of people. You know, this is, yes, it's a sport, and it's a brilliant sport. It's one of the best sports in the world to be a fan of. But God, it is brutal. And when it gets bad, it is really, really bad. And as far as Alex Rins goes, I actually would. It's not that I would like to see him retire, but I'd like to see him retire. Basically, you know, I mean, his body has taken so much of a battering. Like you said, broken leg, all the crashes with LCR Honda. You know, now in Yamaha, he's suffering the same thing. It's not worth it at a certain point. It really is that simple. I get, look, for all of us, and especially for these riders, it's a lifelong dream to be a MotoGP rider. I completely appreciate that, and I'm completely with that. But at some point, your life is not worth the misery of crashing and breaking bones, tearing muscles, all this kind of stuff. It just isn't worth it. I mean, the fact that Joan Mir, for example, is re signing with Honda is absolutely suicidal, quite frankly. I don't want that to happen to Alex Rins, and I don't want that for these riders. You know, you can love riders, you can hate riders, you can be fans of them, you can be haters of them. That's your business to decide. But you don't want to see them spending weddings in wheelchairs, and you want them to be able to enjoy their families and their loved ones, and to basically walk out of the sport the same way they walked in. And for people like Alex Rins, I would be more than happy to see them hang it up because they have nothing to prove. Alex Rins has nothing to prove to anybody. Joan Mir is a world champion. He has nothing to prove. To come back to your point, at some point there has to be a certain line where it just isn't worth it to them anymore. And for guys like Alex Rins, I think we're a lot closer to that.
Yeah. And I think there's a good path for Remy to maybe be a test rider for Yamaha, have some wild cards. I mean, he had a very, very solid weekend when you consider everything.
He did.
And if Yamaha is happy with him, I mean, why not? And the World Superbike calendar allows it. Why not?
Yeah. Even with someone like Remy, I'm not saying you should put him in the factory team. That's not the point that I'm making. But with Remy Gardner, and you've spoken about the feedback Yamaha gave about Remy, you've got someone who's young, world champion in Moto 2, extremely likable, and someone who we know in the right environment can be a brilliant member of a certain team. He's someone you can build a project around. He's someone you can work with. He's someone who will listen to feedback. And he's also someone who's intelligent enough of a rider to give intricate feedback on the bike. With Yamaha, I mean, we've seen a lot of different names linked to sort of Pramac Yamaha. I'd throw Remy Gardner in there if he wants it. I think he could be a decent option, maybe for the satellite team, and you let him grow back in MotoGP and develop. I would strongly consider Remy Gardner, and he
Yeah.
has GP experience like this weekend, and he can only get better.
I'd argue Yamaha doesn't need a young rider. Like, I had my predictions on Twitter some time ago where I think everybody will go. And I had Miguel Oliveira and Sergio Garcia at Pramac Yamaha.
Hmm.
It was before Pramac Yamaha was announced, and as it stands right now, I'm still 100% correct on my predictions with Alex Marquez and Pramac Yamaha. But I think Yamaha doesn't need somebody like Sergio Garcia. They need somebody like Jack Miller. They need somebody like Joan Zarco. They need somebody like Miguel Oliveira. People who've been in MotoGP for a long time, who can develop a bike and give them good feedback. They don't need this superstar who's competing with Fabio for P11.
That's true. That is objectively true. Yeah, it really depends on the profile. Like, I do agree with Pramac, especially with the role they serve. They need experienced riders who can develop the M1 and who can give good testing feedback to Yamaha. But at some point, maybe not next season, but maybe the season after, when that bike is developed and when that bike is in a good place, there's always going to be a place for a young star like Remy. And I think when that bike's developed, he could be a great person to slot in there because he has the work ethic, he has the attitude, and he has the mentality. And I think he's someone you could really build around in the future. So maybe for like 2025, yes, you get Oliveira, Miller, whoever it is. But I think 2026 and beyond, maybe someone like Remy Gardner is going to be in a good position there.
Yeah, I think a test rider role would be very good for him. With occasional wildcards, he loves his life in World Superbike. The bikes are better, the tires are better. Like, not necessarily the bikes are faster, but the bikes are more fun to ride. So, I mean, pay him a shitload of money to be a test rider, and I think he's happy with this.
Yeah, true. Is Remy too young to be a test rider, though?
I don't know. Why not? Like, as a test rider, your job is to obviously test and give good feedback. If you can do this at 26, why not? Like, I don't know, but they have Crutchlow obviously, but other manufacturers have multiple test riders as well. So why not? Even with the concessions, like test as much as you want with as many riders as you want. Do it. Who
Yeah.
cares?
I mean, I'm not against it by any means. I think Remy's input would be extremely valuable, but a part of me wonders, does he still have GP ambitions? And would being a test rider inhibit that? But like I said, it's down to Remy. If he wants to do it,
Yeah,
absolutely let him do it.
yeah, obviously. And the last thing I would like to mention, what was nice at being at the track, at the warm-up lap, on let's say at the sighting lap, that was better. You could really hear the engines because they were coming out of the box one after another. And Honda obviously has problems with the engine, you know? It was such a screamer like sound, and you hear this screaming engine, and then the Ducati comes and the KTM. It was first a Honda, then a KTM, and you hear this brrr, like this blubbery sound of the Ducati. Excuse me, the KTM, where you hear the firing orders totally different. We know it's a V4, but the firing orders totally different. And I think Honda needs to bring a new engine ASAP with a completely different firing order and stuff, and have somebody build the engine who actually knows what they're doing.
Was there a
That's all.
particular, sorry to
What?
interrupt, was there a particular engine that was your favorite sounding, or were they all just very similar?
Well, the Ducati and the KTM, they were pretty similar. Honestly, just from a sound perspective, I like the Honda because it's sort of screaming. It sounds evil because the bike is actually evil. And when you just want to listen to it, I think the Honda is a great sound because it's aggressive, it's screaming, and the the KTM and the Yamaha and um, the Ducati and the Aprilia, they sound more or less in the same ballpark of sounds. Like the Ducati and the KTM, they're very similar, but at the end of the day, the best engine is the one who goes fast, and that's the Ducatis.
That's a very good way of looking at it.
Just pure sound, I like the Honda.
Nice, cool.
Okay, so we won't get to Moto 2 and Moto 3 this time because Fairman won and he didn't get a long lap. Hooray! And David Alonso, he was smart. He controlled everything. I just want to get some quick shout outs to Diego Moreira, to Vietti and Roberts, Aegis, and Abolino. I think they did good races. And Tairo Furusato also. I mean, very, very good. But um, due to the fact that we talked so much about the life experience, I think it's too much to talk about Moto 3 and Moto 2 also. So it was good to have you back, Keelan. It was good to record the podcast again. Now we have 3 weeks of a break again. And I really appreciate you doing this for the first half of the season with me. And I'm very excited to see where this one goes. So thank you very much and goodbye, Keelan.
Goodbye, Leo. Goodbye, everybody else. Great to be back. Brilliant first half of the season. I'm incredibly excited for part two coming at Silverstone. And yeah, let's see where this crazy season takes us.